Hey there, duelists. So, in case you've been living under a rock, Konami just dropped a new Yu-Gi-Oh TCG Banlist update, and this one is absolutely huge. Like, it's really big. There are a lot of cards that got banned, limited, semi-limited, everything, and I think it's kind of like mind-boggling and very exciting, and it really does change everything. So I wanted to talk about this ban list and just everything that I'm feeling right now, because there's a lot of different emotions and a lot of different cards. And then, of course, get you guys' opinions on it. Make sure you drop a like on the video, of course, for YouTube and everything like that. And subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay, let's get into the actual goodness. I've got this stuff pulled up over on Master Duel Meta. So here's the whole list, just your little quick spoiler. We're going to talk about all the cards. This is great because I can just tab over them and it shows their effect. And you guys can read them and follow along. And I also have the ban list just officially, it's on the Yu-Gi-Oh site, so you guys know it's real. All right, so 4 banned cards. We've got Agito, the Ancient Sentinel, and also Kelbeck, the Ancient Vanguard. So these 2 cards are the Ishizu Millers, and these have been really controversial for a very, very, very long time. Basically, since they came out, they were really useful in tier elements, and still technically are. I think that finally banning these cards is the right call. As somebody who plays a lot of Master Duel, I certainly know that they were annoying there too, and they've finally gotten banned, so this is kind of some parity. Not going to complain about that one bit. I think it's kind of unfortunate because this does mean that anybody kind of trying to play a variant of tier elements right now is certainly hampered a lot by this. Kind of sucks because tier elements 2 were getting a lot more popular in the last few months, and so that means that they probably won't be as viable. I think people will still find a way. But frankly, I find these cards to be really, really obnoxious. And it's mostly because it actually mills not just so many cards, which helps them, but also because it mills your opponent's cards, which means you get to see their strategy. And I've never really liked that about these. So these cards getting banned is cool. It also matches with the OCG. So you guys can see right down there. It lets you know that the TCG and the OCG have both banned them. Next card's Mathmech Circular. Now this is really interesting. It's funny because, again, coming from a Master Duel background, I actually really wanted this card to get like limited or banned in that format, and it didn't. But it was already limited in the TCG, and they just went ahead and straight up banned the thing. I have zero complaints about this. I do not like Mathmex very much at all. I don't really like Cyber's Pile. I've always found it to be just one of the more obnoxious decks. It can push through so many interruptions and still manage to, like, OTK you or set up the big Link 6 Cybers thing with the Save Worm in the Grave and Super Factorial. And, it can access code OTK you and like turn 2. It's just really pretty wild. I think that card does everything. Like, it's like a super card. It's kind of a custom card, like, if I'm being completely honest. And, yeah, I think that I'm glad to see this thing go. Honestly, I think that Mathmech still is like a cool deck outside of it, but this card just did way too much stuff. So, a good hit, IMHO. Next is the big, big, big hit, I think, here, and that's Isolde, Two Tails of the Noble Knights. So this card, I'm very surprised it actually took this long for it to get banned. There have been so many formats in the past, like multiple different ones, where I felt like this card could probably just get the axe. It's one of those cards from the sort of Link Reigns pack in the OCG, if you guys remember that from like way back, of Link 2 monsters that just completely push Links into overdrive. Like, this alongside things like Electromite and Halqifibrax and Vert Anaconda. It sucks. I know that there are going to be some people who play warrior decks and just like honest, warrior, equip decks and stuff, and they're going to be like, oh, this really sucks, and like, this is unfair, I wanted to play these. But let's be honest here. Isolde was never used with good intentions, right? Or very rarely used with good intentions. And so, it's finally gotten the axe. I think that this is probably for the best. This is just one of those cards. It does suck because the Infernoble deck right now was able to use this, and so that's a really, really huge nerf. I don't know if people will necessarily even be like using that anymore. Another thing with this too is that it actually enabled FTKs, like the Exodia FTK that was actually played at a YCS with Jeff Leonard. So yeah, they probably knew this sort of card just had to get hit. It is funny, though, that it's at 3 in the OCG, but I guess it isn't maybe as much of a problem over there. I'm not really sure. Those are your 4 banned cards. 4 banned cards. Really crazy. We don't usually get 4 banned cards. Okay, now down to the limited cards. So, first is Orcus Harp Horror. It's limited to 1. So, this is actually a hit that people have wanted for so long. Like, this is kind of just that ongoing thing in the comment section of every ban list discussion or prediction or anything is that Harp Horror should go. to 1 at least, and it finally is. And I personally don't think that this is a bad thing at all. So I'm not like a huge Orchist fan myself. I know like people like Trell obviously are, but I think this is fine. I mean, this card has been banned for so long, and it kind of wraps up the storyline of a lot of those 2019 decks like Sky Striker and Salamangreat finally getting all their cards back, at least like to 1 and stuff. Electro might probably be the only exception here, but yeah, I think this is cool. This card's in Master Duel at like 3, and it doesn't really make much of an impact there. So I don't think that 1, or it's like 2, 1 or 2. I don't remember what it is in Master Duel, but yeah, I think 1 copy in the TCG is not going to be a huge problem, and it just opens up some more deck playability that I think has been much needed for a long time. So not a lot to say about it other than I think thumbs up from Konami, a really good one. Okay, next is Redox Dragon Ruler of Boulders. So this is pretty exciting if you're a TCG player. This actually recently got limited as well in Master Duel, so that's really cool. It's the Earth Dragon Ruler, and frankly, I am glad to see this because I've been an avid proponent for a long time that the Dragon Rulers are very dated and will not make a huge impact if they were to be legal in the game. So it's going to be cool to see that put to the test with Redox at 1, because we're going to get to find out if people would play this card. I think that Vernus Elves in general function so similarly to Redox, the Vernus Elf cards do, that this card actually doesn't even seem like it would be a huge problematic threat, and maybe not even preferable to run over them. You'd probably run them both, I guess, if you're doing like an Earth pile of some kind. But yeah, I'm interested in seeing, what this does, if anything at all, and maybe if we can get like Tidal off on a ban list in the future, because that would be really cool. So I'm here for this. I'm here for the experimentation and the creativity. It's a good call. Okay, next is Rescue Ace Airlifter. So the OCG had actually semi-limited this card, but I think putting this to 1 is a pretty decent decision. So Rescue Ace, right now at least, are one of the top tier decks, and a lot of it is because of this guy being able to search for Emergency, and that just being a sort of 1 card starter all in and of itself. And I know that people don't necessarily love, super consistent decks like that have starters like this. That said, the sentiment that I've always had around Rescue Ace, and I think that most people seem to share this in general, is that it is a sort of mid-range, strong mid-range, but like mid-range controlled deck. And so it does suck to see a deck like that having to take a hit like this. But it might just be a little healthier this way. They might want to encourage some degree of diversity, especially because they feel like Fire's already getting a lot of support. And if this ban list hits other things, then maybe Rescue Ace would be too good, just like lingering on. So I get it. I wish it maybe got to go to 2 instead, because I like Rescue Ace a lot, and I was kind of looking forward to playing this deck in the TCG as well, because I've played a lot of it in Master Duel. But I don't have too many complaints. I think that the hit makes sense, so nothing too bad to say here. Okay, Unchained Soul of Sharvara. This is one that I can't speak too much on. I haven't actually gotten a lot of Unchained playtime in the TCG. I do know, let me read this again to make sure this is the one that I thought it was. During the main phase, if in your hand, target a fiend, destroy it, summon this card, and if this goes to the grave, you set 1. Yeah, so, okay, this is just one of their really strong, just extender cards. I think that it going to 1 is probably similar to Airlifter going to 1, where these 2 decks have been pretty strong and dominant and made a lot of a presence in the last few months, and so they just felt like hitting both of their consistency some would be the right call. I'm interested in what people think about this because, again, I don't know as much about Unchained, just like how it's played and stuff. So let me know, you guys, like, is this the right hit, the wrong hit, too much, too little? I've heard some people complain about Unchained, just the fact that it recurs so much, but that's generally just a trend of Unchained. So what is it that makes this specific card even better? I am curious to know. I've heard that like it can do a lot because it's level 6 as well. Does that have anything to do with it? You guys can actually fill me in on that. Okay, so these next 2 are kind of interesting. Sun Avalon Dryas and Sunvine Healer. So these 2 cards are a little bit, they're a little bit bizarre. So I know that the Sun Avalon deck, the Rika Sun Avalon deck, is not really like the strongest meta deck around. It's made a lot of impact at YCS events. Obviously, Jessica Robinson and like other players have managed to see a lot of success with this. So I think that's cool. I was surprised this got hit because I didn't think most people considered this to be like a super duper big threat. It felt like it kind of had some weaknesses to hand traps, and I thought that maybe if they were going to hit it, Aromatherapy Jasmine might have been the preferred hit, but this is totally fine. My only experience with this deck, at least, is playing it mostly on Master Duel, but I have watched some of the YCSs that it's been a part of. Nobody in my like local area physically plays this deck. I do think that like Link 1 cards like this going to 1 or even banned is usually a good thing. I just think in this case, it's one of the decks that didn't seem like it was as much of a universal threat. Still though, this card is wild because if I'm correct, it doesn't have a like hard once per turn or anything like that. and so putting it to 1 is probably just a good call. Let me know what you guys think about this one as well. Very interested in seeing if this deck can like make it at all. There's supposed to be more plant cards on the horizon, so maybe they'll just replace it. Okay, next card is Ib the World Chalice Justiciar. So this is a really, really big one actually. This reminds me a lot of Dinglong coming off the ban list. So it's one of those cards where it's a generic level 5 synchro, and when it gets synchro summoned, you get to add a spell or trap to hand. There were a lot of combos with this card back in the day. I remember with dinosaurs, I remember with Dragon Link, just all sorts of crazy things because it can search for just any World Legacy card, so that could be like World Legacy Guard Dragon or any of the different World Legacy archetypes that have World Legacy cards. So it going to 1 means there's going to be a lot of kind of these, I don't want to call them niche combos, but certainly like, you know, engine pile-y combos that are going to use this card. I think it's going to make pretty immediate impact. Interested in seeing just how strong it's going to be since the OCG elected to keep this ban, but we're getting it unbanned. So it kind of feels like we're like taking a trip back to like 2019 or so with some of these hits like this and the Harp Horror thing. All right, next is Snatch Steal. So this is another fun one. And in fact, if you guys remember back in 2014, early 2015, I think it was 2014, Snatch Steal actually got unbanned. It went to 1 and then immediately promptly got banned again because Konami realized this card's pretty strong. However, it's been nearly 10 years since then, and I think that it's finally safe to unleash this card again because, well, there's something that you'll see here in a bit, but yeah, stealing cards is obviously still very strong, but Konami has found that with like Change of Heart, legal and stuff, it still isn't proving to be like a huge issue, and this is certainly a pretty good card for when you're going second. Sure, it could be considered pretty sacky, but I think that it's just going to join the host of going second cards that are pretty good to side in and can be really useful, and you probably won't exactly main deck it. I would not think so. So I think it's exciting, and plus it kind of hits our quota for like unbanned classic Yu-Gi-Oh spell card that a lot of people want on these ban lists. All right, and now we get to probably the most interesting and like just relieving part of this ban list. That is Goes and Match, Rivalry of Warlords, and There Can Be Only One, all going to 1. This actually brings us to parity with Master Duel because they have hit a lot of these floodgates in basically the same way. Floodgates are something that people always complain about in Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's totally understandable why. They can be really, really annoying to play with. They slow the game down to a crawl. And so putting them all to 1, ignore these numbers by the way, these are going by the Master Duel numbers, but these are all limited to 1. Putting these all to 1, I think, is probably the right call for just general community player enjoyment, right? I know that you can sometimes play around these cards. I know that they can be destroyed by spell and trap removal, but I still think that these just kind of make the play experience a lot less pleasant for people. So putting them to 1 overall is probably the right call. And it means that maybe we'll finally see a world where trap decks are not so heavily reliant on these. I think they will still obviously be run even at the numbers that they're at, and this does sort of run the risk of them feeling a little bit sackier as a result because it's like, oh wow, you saw the one-off There Can Be Only One or the one-off Goes and Match. But I still believe that this is an overall net good thing, and I think this makes these cards a little bit less tempting too for a like kind of combo deck or going first deck to make so much use of these like in the side deck, because that would oftentimes happen as well. If you were playing a, you know, Omni type or Omni attribute like combo deck, then you could still use something like Rivalry Warlords in your side deck and just be really very oppressive. So I'm glad to see these cards at 1. I think for player experience, this is going to be a pretty good one. Okay, next we got some semi-limited cards. Dino Wrestler Pankratops going back to 2 is really cool. So I feel like since, spoiler, Kashtira Fenrir did not get hit at all on this list, at least Pankratops coming to 2 brings us to some kind of equality here. I mean, I think that Fenrir largely power crept this card, but this thing still does have a few applications. It can still be really difficult to interact with, and it's still great for going second. It could be a useful side deck card. So Pankratops at 2, I'm with it. I think that this is fine. Dino Wrestler Pankratops means that, yeah, you can actually use this in a dinosaur deck and get some really good use out of it. It's searchable. And all in all, I don't know. I think like people are probably happy to see this sort of thing back. Let me know if you guys think that maybe this combined with the Change of Heart, or not Change of Heart, but Snatch Steal thing, maybe this is like too much power for the going second deck. They also get, you know, Mind Control, just a little sneak peek of that. So I don't know, but I don't have too much of an issue with this. I'm interested in seeing where it goes. Okay, next is Speedroid Terratop to 2. I like this hit, or unhit rather. Terratop has been at 1 for such a long time. I mean, I feel like it's just been like, since like what, 2017 or so that this card was like at, was, you know, finally got like limited or whatever. So putting this to 2 helps Speedroid decks, and it makes for a more accessible, rank 3 sort of turbo-y engine, since you can use this to make Takatomborg and just get some really quick, fast rank 3 Xyz plays going, or maybe it could also be, you know, link material, something like that. I'm interested in it. I think that this could be pretty useful just in general. I don't know. I don't have too much of a problem with it, so count me in. Okay, next is Pirelli Sleepy Memory. Another hit to Pirelli is always going to be celebrated for me. I'm not a big Pirelli fan, but yeah, by hitting this card, I'll say it basically is about the same as kind of what Master Duel did with the consistency hits. This Sleepy Memory hit means that it's harder to search this with my pal Pirelli or my friend Pirelli. And so that slight bit of consistency to the net amount of quick play spells means that Pirelli are not going to be able to get to their actual monsters as readily, and I think that that is overall a good thing. Pirelli can be a really obnoxious deck to play against. Now, it was not like, you know, the top best deck of the format or anything, but it still is just very annoying. Nobody likes dealing with, you know, multi-material noir and all those sorts of things. So, yeah, a pretty good hit. Okay, and finally, we've got some unlimited cards. So, Infernity Archfiend, I think this is long overdue. This card just does not do or mean much of anything in today's game. Infernity is way too fragile and risky of a deck to run like seriously in tournaments, so I think that they at least deserve this back. Kashtira Unicorn to 3, cool. I don't have too much of a problem with this. I mean, I think with a Rise Heart outright ban, this card was just kind of awkwardly at 2, so putting it at 3, sure, why not? I think that playing a birth control strategy, and I know how bad that sounds, but playing like a Kashtira birth control strategy with triple unicorn and stuff is a totally viable thing if you just want a neat little control deck. We actually saw that see some success in YCS earlier in the format, so sure, that's cool. Okay, next is Mind Control to 3. This one's actually kind of wild. This combined with the fact that Snatch Steal is at like 1 now, and then like we've also still got Change of Heart, is like really interesting to me. It means that there's a lot of really strong going second cards to just sort of like break boards, take cards, do whatever the heck you want. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this one. I mean, Mind Control has always been one of those ones that's just like, you know, you can't use the monster to attack, but obviously that's not really usually the point. You kind of just take it, you can use whatever good effect it has, and then also like link it off and make your own combos. So it's another one of these really big busts for going second. Again, you know, with Mind Control and Pankratops and all that stuff, do you guys think that this is meant to be like some sort of a buff to going second decks? Pot of Desires went from 2 back to 3, so cool hit. I never really understood exactly why the card went to 2, but I don't have too much of a problem with it going back to 3. I don't know if it makes a huge difference. If you wanted to run 3 Pot of Desires, you can. This actually makes it different than the OCG and Master Duel, where there seems to be almost an attack on pot cards with, like, you know, Extravagance and Prosperity and all these cards getting hit, and Desires there as well. So, yeah, it's at 3 again. I think this is cool. For people like me who like playing Grin Maju and other little degenerate decks, no complaints. So yeah, this is cool. Okay, Spellbook of Judgment, doesn't matter. I used to love this card so much and wanted to get off the ban list, but I realized that this just isn't going to actually make any meaningful impact. So sure, it can go to 3. Sprite Starter, this is another one that kind of feels similar to Kashtira Fenrir, or not Fenrir, but Unicorn, where, sure, why not? I mean, like, I think that giving Sprite a little bit more playability is not a bad thing. Since Sprite Elf is banned, I think that this won't cause like too many issues. It just means that if you want to run a Sprite hybrid engine with, you know, like for Hires or for Runics or just whatever, Evil Twins, then you get a little bit more consistency in a starter card. So that's cool. And I think this is one of those cards where like putting it to 2 for a while was fine, but it probably just deserved to go back to 3. And then probably the last big hit here is Upstart Goblin going straight to 3. So, this one's interesting. I feel like the reason why this isn't as big of a deal as people probably think is just because this card has been somewhat power crept out. Back when it was run at 3 copies, you know, like shout out to Patrick Hoban for popularizing that. I think that that was a time when decks were not as consistent as they are now. A lot of decks now have the consistency and the ability to kind of start their own combos and do their own thing. So I don't think that many decks would actually want to run triple copies of Upstart Goblin, but that doesn't mean that it's useless. I think that this could be useful for like niche strategies like Gold Pride. And also, if your deck is just a lower tier one and you just need some safe draw power that adds even just a tad bit of consistency to your strategy, because not every deck's got that, then sure, you know, run Upstart Goblin. Why not? And that is the ban list. That's everything. This took a while to go through because there's just so many hits. And this one actually goes into effect on, if I'm correct, yeah, this one goes into effect on January 1st, 2024. So it's like we're literally getting to start a new year with just a new ban list, like a completely new year, a completely new ban list, probably the biggest yet. I don't know, man. So many different things. So I think that my biggest takeaways from this list are that Konami feels like they're kind of trying to just fix a lot of things people have had complaints about for a long time. I think that the Floodgate complaint's probably the biggest one. I think Konami finally setting out to just like limit a lot of those annoying older floodgates is a good thing. I think players will be happy with this. It does sort of suck that a few of the more obnoxious ones like Dimensional Barrier and Eradicator Epidemic Virus, and maybe for some people like Dimension Shifter, did not get hit. I think that people would have preferred to have those as well. But still, this is a start, and it means that there's definitely they've been paying attention to like the things people don't like, so maybe there's some hope for those to perhaps get hit again in the future. But yeah, I think the Floodgate hits are really good. I think there's a big noticeable buff to going second with the Pankratops, with the Mind Control, with the Snatch Steal. Interested in seeing how a few of these older cards that come off are going to work, like Redox, for instance, and like Pankratops. And I also feel like we're kind of finally completing the story arc of the 2019 decks that, you know, got banned really hard. With your Harp Horror back, with your Justiciar back, a lot of those cards they've been on the list for a long, long time, and people have wanted them back, just if only to have the fun to experiment and play with them. So a lot of completed kind of character arcs, so to speak. And then a few of the newer decks like Unchained and what is it, Rescue Ace, you know, they get some light hits as well. No clue what this actually means will be the best decks moving forward. I mean, obviously there's going to be a big push for just Snake Eye in general. It's Konami's new baby, so they gotta hit, you know, like everything around it, not actually hit it. And there were a few things I know that people wanted to see gone. I've seen like people talk about cards like Beatrice, obviously certain hand traps like Shifter. But all in all, I gotta say, this is a good list. It's big, it's exciting. People love big ban list hits. It's kind of got me excited. I feel like I might start, you know, maybe competing again, like in physical in-person regionals. I haven't done that in a really long time. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about this ban list. There are so many things, but I think this overall is a really big win for Konami. There are a few things that I'm sure people wanted to hit that did not get hit, and I'm sure a few decks got hurt in the process. Stuff like Isolde is never going to be fun if you actually were playing an honest warrior deck. But still, overall, it seems like a net win. I'm pretty happy with it. Let me know how you guys feel about it down in the comments. Subscribe for more Yu-Gi-Oh! And I'll see you guys in the next one. Pass turn.